I'm about halfway through the Orphan Queen, and so far it's giving me kind of like your standard YA dystopian vibes. It reminds me a lot of The Selection and Red Queen in the fact that, you have the royalty and you have a lot to do with like the fashion and meetings and, kind of like interpersonal intrigue. I do find the whole magic makes us toxic thing called Wraith. That is pretty interesting, but it's not really been explored. And then I find it pretty obvious that Black Knife is either Tobiah or James. And I also really don't like Patrick. I didn't mind him at first, but now that we've gotten halfway through and he basically tells Wilhelmina that he is going to be her king, I just find that kind of arrogant and like it's obvious, since she is the princess, what he means that she's going to marry him. And I just find him very arrogant and unlikable. So I'm about 2/3 of the way through the Orphan Queen now. On chapter 28, and I'm just kind of really irritated with some of the decisions and things that Wilhelmina has done. And, like, for example, okay, she is in the palace pretending to be a person, a Lady Juliana from the Adia, and obviously none of this is true. She's not that person. She's not even from the Adia. She's not friend of the Indigo Kingdom at all. And yet, when she goes outside on Osprey business, and that's her kind of her group that's trying to get her kingdom back, she doesn't wear a mask. The only thing she does is dresses all in black. And yes, she does go out late at night, but there is still a chance that somebody could see her either sneaking in or out of the palace. And I suppose, yes, if she would sneak out of the palace or into the palace wearing a mask, that would be more suspicious. But I feel like she could plan this a lot better. And like, especially once you make it over the palace wall, to wear a mask to hide your face would probably be a good idea, because what if a servant sees you somewhere, or, anybody sees you and they start gossiping? It could easily get back, your cover will be blown. And then another thing is when they went to a ball, the dress she wore had ospreys embroidered on it, and her friend does say that yes, they are stylized, so it'd be hard to see them, but it still seems like a risk that's not really worth taking. And at this point in the book, she has met up with the vigilante Black Knife again. She has no clue who he is, and she has just admitted that she's a member of the Ospreys. And again, yes, he did let her go after using magic, but it just seems, again, like an unnecessary risk, and her character has been seeming like more independent than most characters, and like, she wouldn't really take this risk, and now it's like her brain has just completely gone out the window. I am still finding this book interesting, but there's just some things that are definitely, YA sort of centric, that this sort of thing seems to happen a lot, that the love interest, because Black Knife is obviously semi a love interest, and that some decisions that are made seem to be more aesthetic than actual, thinking about it for what would make sense plot wise. So I'm almost done. Like I said, I have about 100 pages left, about a third of the book, and I'll hopefully finish that later tonight and then go ahead and do a full review. So it's a couple hours later, and I finished The Orphan Queen, and I do have to say, since that last update, the last third of the book was really, really good. It had a lot more action and a lot more stakes, and I felt like there really weren't as many stupid decisions made. And you get to see the backstory of Wilhelmina and Tobiah. It's been hinted out throughout the whole book. She was like, the one night war was caused by Tobiah, and then you find out that it was, but it wasn't. Tobiah was kidnapped, so it wasn't his choice. He didn't intend to start this war. And you also see the repercussions of what happened in the Wraithland in part 2 of the book. And when Wilhelmina reached out to the air and told it to wake up, come alive. And what exactly that means, I'm not entirely sure. And then we also see more of Patrick, and just how much I dislike him has really been driven home in this. I understand wanting to help her and wanting the kingdom back, but the way he goes about it, and he pretty much betrays her. She's supposed to be queen, and basically his queen, obviously everybody in Aecor is queen, and she tells him, no, I want to do this without bloodshed, which may be a little unrealistic, but there is ways that he could do it, and they came to the agreement that she was going to go back and try to negotiate and get Aecor back without bloodshed, and he was quite simply going to prepare. But instead, you find out that he had killed the reigning king, and of course this was before this whole thing, but still. And then he tried to assassinate Prince Tobiah when Wilhelmina had specifically said not to. And Tobiah even says not only did he betray the Indigo Kingdom, us, but he also betrayed the Vermilion Throne, which was Aecor's throne as well. And I do kind of feel like the whole romance between Wilhelmina and Tobiah could have been done differently. There could have been a little bit more backstory, or they could have been, it could have been different. Tobiah's already engaged, and no, he does not love his fiancée, but again, it's political, and I just feel like that was a little too drawn out, although I am kind of glad that it was not the entire focus of the book, and I don't feel like that really took away from some of the action and stuff, as much as, the hobnobbing with the royalty of the Indigo Kingdom, in the palace, part took for, probably about half of the book. Overall, I definitely did enjoy it, and it definitely is interesting. This idea of magic creates a toxic byproduct, and kind of, playing with the fact that there is an equal and opposite reaction to anything. So, what exactly would be the cost of magic? That is actually something I've not seen explored in as much detail in a lot of books. There are some that I have seen that kind of just dismiss it with, oh, it takes time from your life, but they don't really explore, how much and how does this affect people who use it heavily. So yeah, I definitely do recommend this if you enjoy YA, if you enjoy kind of like light fantasy, and I'm definitely interested to go on to the Mirror King and learn more about this Wraith boy and see more of the repercussions now that the Wraith has become more agitated. So I read up to chapter 9 of The Mirror King, and so far I am liking it. One thing that is getting a little irritating is I feel like the romance is kind of more in this story. Not necessarily romance per se, but the pining that Wilhelmina has for Tobiah, and then the way she's torn about him being Black Knife as well. I'm honestly just kind of over that. I do, however, like Chrysalis, or the Wraith Boy, as he's also known. I'm kind of interested to see what happens with him. He keeps saying there's consequences. And we have seen one of them when he destroys the building that they're having the King's Memorial in. And yeah, so far this has been pretty interesting. I'm definitely going to keep reading it, and I'm excited to keep reading it, although I really do hope that the romance part soon takes a back seat. So I'm not quite halfway through The Mirror King now. However, I realized earlier on in the books that they mentioned the clocks striking 18, 22, etc., etc., military time. And I'm sitting there wondering to myself, I wonder if this was inspired by 1984, where it opens with the clock striking 13. And a couple chapters after I wondered that, of course, the clock struck 13. So I just kind of found that funny. And I am feeling like the whole love triangle between Lady Meredith, Prince Tobiah, and Princess Wilhelmina has been drawn out overly at this point. I am still really interested in seeing what the Wraith Boy will do. He's not done much since the destruction he wreaked earlier on, which, yeah, sure, that was a big deal, but what else is he going to do? What other consequences are there? I want to know. I want to get into this. So I'm going to continue reading and update this later. So I finished The Mirror King, and honestly, I'm quite upset with the way Lady Meredith was handled, I should say. The way she was taken out of the love triangle. I feel like there's absolutely no reason for her to die. And they even state later on that she probably didn't die immediately. She could have been saved. And just, that really irked me. And yeah. Other than that, I did enjoy the rest of the book. We finally get Wilhelmina going back to Acor and dealing with all of that political stuff. And there are some battles, and then there is the Wraith that comes in and kind of takes over. and that takes over the Indigo Kingdom, which allows her to become queen. And then one thing I'm not entirely sure on is her and Tobiah are going to get married. How exactly are they going to rule when they are talking about, oh yeah, we could fix the Indigo Kingdom with these shards that they had created? And I wasn't expecting everything that happened with Tobiah's cousin. I really wasn't, and the truth of that. However, I felt like it really could have been explored more. The same with the Wraith Boy, but in the end, I guess they did what they thought was right. So overall, I did enjoy this series. I'd give it between a 3.5 and a 4 stars. And yeah, so if it sounds like something you would like, if you like kind of the dystopian / fantasy YA books that are a little more political, I think this would be a good one for you. I read the 2 novellas that my library had for this as well, and the first one was The Hidden Prince, and that one takes place 2 years before the Orphan Queen and focuses on Tobiah, and I actually believe all 4 do. My library has 1 and 4, so 1 and 4 were the only ones I read, and they both focus on Tobiah. And this one did kind of leave me wondering what exactly is the truth behind James's parentage, because, he's an illegitimate son of Tobiah's aunt, and yeah, this was also a good look into how sheltered Tobiah was, and the fact that he knew he was sheltered and everything. I thought this was a pretty good novella, and it had a decent plot and everything. And yeah, if you enjoyed The Orphan Queen, you definitely enjoy these. The 4th novella was Black Knife, and in this one, we do learn that James is actually Tobiah's half-brother, not cousin. I kind of do wish that this had been brought up in the main series, but I guess, this is supposed to be read between the 2 books, so I guess it's not that weird to have it here, but it is kind of weird that it's never mentioned in the main books. And this one is also set 2 years before the Orphan Queen, and this is Tobiah learning to be Black Knife. I liked this one more than The Hidden Prince, and I felt like this novella is what the whole series should have been. I felt like there's a better mix of the action and the politics. But yeah, like I said with the first one, if you enjoyed the series, you'll definitely enjoy these.